Hey friends, speaking of friendship, I'm glad to see so many of you jump on today. I'm Christy and welcome to this B2K Periscope broadcast on friendships. And so today we're going to talk about lots of different things that we can do to promote friendship, and I'm going to share a little bit of backstory about how my friend, who I think is on with us today, Dr. Meyer, and I sort of started this adventure of looking at friendships. And so her journey has been much longer, but we've started this sort of idea of high fives. So I'm going to read to you a couple of facts about friendship. And if you're new to Periscope, you can tap your screen at any time to give hearts. That's how we say hey to each other. That's how we agree with something or we like something. You can also comment anytime. You can let us know where you're coming from, where you're joining us from today, and you can always ask a question. So I'm going to read a couple of facts, and if you agree with these facts or you've experienced them, just tap your screen and give a few hearts. So first of all, friendship fact number 1. The greatest predictor of happiness is friendship. So that doesn't even really have to do with early childhood, right? It's this quest that all of us are on in terms of happiness. And who knew it was by having friendships? Another one, for those of us who work with young children with diverse abilities, here we go. 1 in 4 kindergartners with disabilities have fewer friendships and more difficulty transitioning to school. How many of you have seen that? Things went well in early childhood in terms of pre-K, and then this transition to the big scary world of kindergarten happened. And without really secure friendships, kids struggle, kids with and without disabilities. So here's one more friendship fact for you, and then we'll get started with today's scope. Friendship improves children's confidence and competence. And I would argue it increases all of our confidence and competence. It's a way that we really feel secure in the world. It's a way that we kind of navigate through life, whether our friends are a sibling, a parent, a teacher, or just a kid in our class. So today I wanted to tell a little bit about the backstory in terms of our high five for friendship, and then just give a couple of ideas and resources, specifically 3 children's books that are fabulous for promoting friendships, but with a little twist. So it's not just reading the story is enough to promote friendship. So Lori and I, building upon her research, have identified 5 strategies for fostering friendships, and we've been blogging about these. So a couple of things, you can go to the blog at http://v2kcoach.com/blog, and you can just type in the keyword friendship and you'll see our previous posts on the topic. Ashley, another one of our friends, is also tweeting things at hashtag B2KCoach today, and so all of the show notes and all of the resources we kind of rushed through really quickly will be shared there as well, including some printables in addition to the blog and some tip sheets. So what Lori and I created in terms of these 5 things was a way to remember that wherever your hand is, if you are near young children, you have at least 5 strategies at your fingertips to foster friendships. And so we gave a name to each finger and sort of said, okay, if it's the thumb, the idea or the strategy is to tell and show others how important fostering friendships is. So a couple weeks ago when we talked about this, we said, how many of you would say, oh, a really important learning objective and time really devoted in our curriculum is to promoting friendships? Might be a theme, but would anybody say considerable amount of the curriculum is addressing friendships? I was in Alaska a couple weeks ago and then in Iowa, and so many of our conversations were around inclusion and how can we ensure that all children are fully included in their community. And so one of the things that kept reminding me was that we need to tell everyone that one of the key ingredients to successful inclusion is having friendships. If kids have someone in that classroom or in that center-based program or in their play group within their community, if they go to a play group with a mom or a grandparent, these are really important ways to ensure that we're fully included is by having friendships. So that tell and show becomes really important. The index finger is really about thinking intentionality. We want to be very intentional, and we'll talk a little bit more about that when I talk about the children's books. And so we go through each of the fingers that we want to really make sure that we are addressing each of them. So let me tell you. So the third one, which is our middle finger, we want to model being a good friend. And this is more than just when we're out in the community. This is in our classrooms, being very overt. If we're on a home visit, creating an opportunity for kids to see how friends interact and what it means to be a friend. The fourth one is the one that Lori wrote about this week in our blog, and this is about reinforcing friendships between children. Again, I was in classrooms so often these last 2 weeks that I was reminded, I always say it, that there's this conduit, right? There's kid, and there's a kid, and there's an adult. And we're always going kid, adult, to kid, back to the adult, to the kid. And never, or rarely, kid to kid. So maybe you could share some hearts if you too have seen times where it's sort of adult, even if it's a parent and another caregiver. And how often do we really facilitate sibling to sibling or peer to peer? So you can tap your screen and give a few hearts if you really see the need to reinforce friendships between children, interactions between children, and that's how we start to form friendships. And then our pinky finger, the strategy there is to promote positive peer-to-peer interactions. So it's not just that you have to be friends, but just this positive interaction with and between children. So that's what Lori and I have been calling our high fives for friendships. But again, it's a reminder that when you have your hand near you, you have 5 easy to go to strategies that are all grounded in research that can promote friendships in young children. And so on that note, we're always reading, right? So, and my friends are fabulous in teaching me things. So 3 books I'm going to tell you about today. You might have heard of some of them. You might not have heard of others. One was new to me as well. So the first one is called Soul Friends, and it was written by my friend, Meyer, and Ashley's busy tweeting away, and you can go to our other website, which is called Mindful Education Solutions. It's all one word, Mindful Education Solutions. Go to resources, and then you'll see a link to Soul Friend resources. And you can download a free copy of the book. It's a digital copy. You can put it on your mobile device. You can print it out. You can make copies for every one of your friends. You can share it with families. It's a really simple read that's called Soul Friends. And at that site, we also have other printables that you can download for free. And there's actually an audio recording of the story as well. So multiple means of representation. But that's Soul Friends. And it really talks about what makes a friend special. Why is it important in our lives? The second book was reminded of, I guess I had seen it and forgotten about it, but my friend Sharon from Wasilla, Alaska, shared it with me a couple weeks ago. And that's The Penguin and the Pinecone. Don't worry, I won't read it to you now. But if you haven't seen it in a while, you got to check it out. If you're all about our Essence Glossary attributes in terms of kindness and friendship and just humanity at its best, this is a fabulous story about a penguin and a pine cone. And so my husband doesn't always pick up on subtle things, so I had to tell him to pay attention to where the scarf was and where the scarf ended up throughout the story. But this is another great read that's all about friendships. Now, when you're talking about reading stories to young kids, one of the things I want to remind you, or remind ourselves, it's not just the story, right? Sure, this is all about friendships and it's great, but it's about the conversation. So we don't want to interview kids like what's going to happen next, and do you have a friend, and who's your friend, and can you say hi to your friend? That's like an interview, right? We really want to have a conversation, something very authentic about what it means to be a friend. So you might give some more hearts if you're like, yeah, I want to have conversations with children. I want to give them authentic experiences about friendship, not just sit and get, not just an interview where I read to them and they're supposed to sort of get the nuances. Another one that may need a guide on the side, if you will, is a book called Peanut Butter and Jellyfish. And the reason I wanted to share this one was a newer friend to me, Alice Wilder, who works with Speakaboo. They recently converted this over to Speakaboo. So if you haven't checked out that resource, you might as well, because for the kids we serve, having some form of technology or augmentative communication device or presenting things in both audio and written, things that are interactive, which is what Speakaboo lets you do, can really help and the engagement piece. So again, it's not just about sitting down and reading the stories, but it's about those 5 strategies that Lori and I mentioned about modeling and being intentional and reinforcing and telling everyone how important it is. And so if we have the books available, are they accessible? And then can we help families by maybe downloading Soul Friends, which is free, or getting Speakaboo, which is more interactive for some of our friends who may have trouble sitting for story time. So those are my 3 quick reminders in terms of really promoting friendship, that we want to use stories. It's great for just daily interactions. It's great for building vocabulary, but we can be very intentional in how we teach about friendship. But again, it's not so much about us just reading the story as much as it is about us having a conversation. So keep those 5 strategies in mind about telling and showing and being intentional and modeling and promoting peer-to-peer. So some groups in my friends in Iowa have been doing some peer buddy reading. And that might be a fabulous way to do some peer-to-peer interactions instead of eyes on me, crisscross, applesauce, and everybody's just, reading or watching me read a story. You also want to think about how, when you read a story, it feels. If we're talking about friendship, we want kids to be feeling that sort of happiness. Remember that first fact I read about that's the greatest key to happiness is having friendships? How do we really promote that feeling that friendships are a great thing and friendships can lead to happiness? And how do we promote those positive peer-to-peer interactions? So again, you've got 5 strategies right there at the tips of your fingers. And then I've shown you 3 books. One is Soul Friends by my friend Meyer. You can download it for free at mindfuleducationsolutions.com. There's The Penguin and the Pinecone, which my friend Sharon reminded me of from Alaska. And then the last one, which is the peanut butter and jellyfish one. It's really kind of a subtle story about friends, but there's like 8 different storylines about how you can feel left out and how you can help each other and how you can adapt what you do to include others. I mean, there's so many different ways you can approach the friendship in that story alone. So as we wind down, our periscopes, I almost called them a podcast, go really fast. So a couple quick calls to action. These are what you need to do going forward. So one thing is check out our Soul Friends. Another teacher, Anna from Cadillac area in Michigan, she made a whole bulletin board about Soul Friends. And again, Ashley's posting that picture to share with you on hashtag B2KCoach. And so that might inspire you that once you download the book, what can you do with it? How can you promote it school-wide or classroom-wide or in your Head Start to really show that we value friendships and that friendships should be a considerable part of our curriculum. So that's your first call to action, is check out Soul Friends at mindfuleducationsolutions.com. Your second call to action, maybe your final call to action, is to really think about what do you do on a daily basis to promote friendships. It might be in the back of your mind, and maybe this scope has sort of brought it to the front of your mind. Maybe you're thinking more about, I've been reading stories about friendship, but have I really been fostering friendships? Have I been very intentional in forming really strong peer-to-peer interactions? So your last call to action is to remember that your hand is with you, and that when your hands are holding children's hands, when you are sitting near children, when you're eating snack with children, when you're driving in the car with kids, your hands are still there, right? So you've got 5 evidence-based strategies that stems from the work of Dr. Lori Meyer and others that really says we can do better. We can really put this as part of our curriculum and intentionally teach and support friendships. So that is today's Periscope on fostering friendships, and you can all do a high five for joining me today. If you're joining the recorded session, we appreciate that as well, and we look forward to you sharing pictures of how you've promoted friendship in your program and in your agency, and you can always use the hashtag B2KCoach so that we have all of our stories in one single place. So thank you, friends, for joining me today, and I hope you have a fabulous rest of the week. And next week we're talking about why are we focusing on compliance. So kind of like a whole shift away from friendships, but maybe we should be focusing on friendships and not compliance. Maybe we'd be more accountable if we had more friends. So Thanks again and have a fabulous week.